Good morning. It is January the 12th of 2026. Welcome to the first full week of Just Listen, hosted by George, going live. I'm really excited today. I hope that everybody had a great weekend. Actually, I started at 9:59 a.m., so I'm getting better. Looks like my background is clear, and let's dive into it. So, as I previously said last week, I want to do a segment about if I were running for the governor of Illinois. And then my next segment is about what the local policies and issues going on in the Metro East as far as politics go. Um, the legislature actually doesn't convene until January the 20th. So it's a mixed bag for that. And I'll tell you why I said that in a sec. And then I want to do just a quick summary of my other podcast where I talk about US federal government policy. And wow, there is a lot going on in the world and in the United States more specifically. Uh, so it's going to be fun to report it to you, the facts and data, as I promised to you. All right. So first thing is, um, want to talk about the budget of Illinois. Now, the governor and legislature, the tax system is we have ended up with a pretty high deficit. So we owe $143.7 billion in Illinois. So I had mentioned that last week. We also have a better breakdown now. Uh, so most of the debt includes bonds and other obligations, which are high. So that portion of it, state debt and bonds, is $200 billion. And then we've got the long term debt and the shortfalls based on the pensions. So pensions are very important in Illinois. And I believe that if I were running for governor, I would protect those. The reason why is because when those pensions were first created and the state agreed to pay for them, it doesn't make sense to go back against them now because Illinois is in debt for other reasons, right? So the pensions are significant. Probably, like I just stated, uh, $70 billion plus. Now, that's a lot of people. So that covers the teachers and others in the state. Now, I've heard in the past of people wanting to do some kind of cutbacks or reductions and all that stuff. That's not fair. Now, that may be a long term goal once we balance the budget and we're looking at efficiencies. But currently, if I were running for governor of Illinois, I would not do that. Now, what we need to do in this state is do a restructuring of how people do taxes. Now, that would be a long term solution. I had said that I wanted to get rid of the income tax, but guess what? In order to do that, the uh, there would have to be an initiative that went to voters saying that they wanted to get rid of the personal income tax, which is part of the Illinois Constitution. And currently, I don't think that most people have the time to understand what that impact was, etc. And now to get them to do that immediately, I don't think that there would be any uh, high level effort or will to do that currently in the state of Illinois. But we can do some other things to get ready for that. First would be some planning. Like I said earlier, the way that we get taxes in Illinois doesn't work anymore because there was something that I mentioned on Friday. It's called community taxing. And I think I'm unique and I'm inventing this concept. So let's see. So, community um, taxing means that everyone in the community contributes something. So, I gave the example with churches. Churches are a community. Everyone contributes, and through contributing, they can do great things like having great buildings, having daycare. Um, they can build gyms and a strong community for the church where everything is financed and everyone that belongs to the church is taken care of with some kind of service or whatever it is that they and spiritual stuff. But getting back to why that concept would work for Illinois, it would work because under the personal income tax, that is heavily financed by people working. Well, if people are not working, they're not paying into it. Also, if you are in a nonprofit, you're probably not paying it. And also, when you have people here who are working and their income is not being reported, then you're losing out on that revenue as well. And it makes the rest of Illinoisans have to pick up the slack. And as you have noticed over the last several years, we have picked up more people who we need to provide services for. That's why Illinois is in greater debt than most of the other states. In 143 billion, I did a courtesy check on several states and ours is high. Our obligation is high, but I want to immediately take the pensions off of the table. We need to protect those people that are going to get pensions from the state. As stated before, it's unfair to take that away from them now because that was negotiated in good faith. And honestly, I would freeze the levels of any taxes coming in once I would take office until we could evaluate it first and then look at ways of reduction. And I would definitely reduce them. Okay. Um, One of the things that I said is a freeze property taxes. So that's in line with what I just said. That would be fair. Okay. Now, we also need to look at the corporate tax rate. Sorry, I had to adjust my notes there. So currently in Illinois, companies are paying 9.5%. Now, that is high because I looked at some other states and they're probably at about 5%, 5.5. When what Illinois needs to do is be more in line with some of the more successful states, how they are generating revenue. Um, so, with that being said, then we want to attract companies to come into Illinois. Why are we making it so that we're taxing folks so much, these corporations, that they are fleeing the state? Now, that's not an opinion. You can go and look it up. And also, they've kind of got that right on the news, even though they don't talk about it a lot. So, we need to give companies, corporations, incentives to be here. Why? The more people that they have working for them, the more tax revenue we're going to generate for the state. So it's it seems to be that a lot of folks, not just in Illinois, who are politicians, are more concerned about, wow, well, they're worth $400 billion. They should be paying more personally to take care of the others. And I'm not sure where that philosophy came from in the last 20 years, but the others, meaning the corporations, people who have money, they're not going to agree to pay more than they're paying right now. The community approach of everyone pays something works better than uh, what some of these politicians are coming up. And in Illinois, that seems to be a big problem. So this is an election year. Governor Pritzker is running for reelection. He's actually running for a third term. And also, we've got a super majority of Democrats in the state legislature. And like I was telling you on Friday, the federal funds in the next 3 years, they're not going to be a lot because of policy changes with disagreements over immigration and also what some of the other money has been spent on. Okay. So if the governor wins the election and we have the same posture, meaning the same people needing services that have flooded into the state, and also we're going to have to pay probably more in pensions because people are retiring. Well, what does that mean? Well, we have to get the money from someone, right? And I can't believe that people in Illinois want to pay more in taxes. Illinoisans want it to be fair. They want people who are working that aren't paying any taxes whatsoever in the states because they're not documented. Because really, I don't really think that people care about immigration unless it's affecting their pocket. People like me, I'm a moderate Republican, love people. If they are here legally, okay, we have already agreed through federal laws and other stuff, state laws, that we will provide services just like we do to American citizens who need help. What we don't want is people coming to Illinois, because this is something that the governor could work with state, local, and federal officials on to make sure that if they are working, they are paying taxes. Not It's not underhanded, and we're not getting that revenue. So that's what it's more about: fair distribution of taxes in the state of Illinois. Okay, so I mentioned that state constitution. Currently, the state constitution says that the it's a personal income tax, and currently it's 4.95%. Now, I would say immediately I would reduce that so that the tax burden is less with people who are actually working in the state, especially since probably a little under half of the people in Illinois aren't even working. And then a part of that is people who are working who just are not reporting their income because they're undocumented. So that's what that is about, because Illinoisans want to take care of Illinoisans. Now, I'm going to talk more about that in the future. Now, let's look at if the governor gets that third term, for example, him and the legislature could go after Social Security. They could go out after more retirement income, including pensions and IRA withdrawals. Now, I'm not saying that they're currently even thinking about it, but remember, when we elect him next term, if that's what the voters do, he can do pretty much whatever he wants, especially since the legislature has a super Democrat majority. And after the voting is over, you can take that to court, you can do demonstrations, but it's not going to change it. And the federal government, as I stated previously, is cutting off funds. And what is the state going to do? Because we have more people who need services than we have money, which is evidenced by why we're so much in debt right now. Okay, so I'll talk more about that again Wednesday and then add some other things to it. So let's segue into the next segment, which is legislative actions, etc. So, like I said earlier, the legislature comes back in session January 20th, and the legislature, led by the Democrats, are looking at new ways to tax people in the state. And I'm going to tell you what I said last week is going to happen for the rest of the state. Property taxes are going to become so important to raise revenue. Now, I did some checking. I was wondering why we don't get more revenue from the lottery system. As you are aware, and I mentioned this again, but I'm reinforcing it. Why is it that we can't negotiate more money coming from the lottery system to fill in the gaps? That way, the tax burden for property taxes should be less. But we can't do that if we have more people on the system who are not contributing to the community. See, that works. So if you could contribute to the community, it's less for every Illinoisan in the state. That's the theme. That would be a slogan for someone running for governor. It would be, we are better financially as a community. Taxing should be a community, not sole people paying for the system. All right. And so I'll probably say it again. I can fine tune it a little bit more, etc. Okay. So with these taxes that are going to come in based on Chicago being, their taxes were doubled in November, like I told you. Now, that was Chicago doing that. Why were they doing it? Like I told you, we have more people on the system that aren't contributing anything. So, governor could be planning the same thing. Will he do it now? No. But if he gets reelected for that third term, I believe that that's what will happen. Your property taxes will double. Okay. So The taxing of senior citizens, I mentioned that one before too. The Republicans put that up there. They also were trying to do grants so that when someone gave grants for education, it would go against the whole, meaning that the contributions of taxpayers would be less. Because let's face it, there are people in the state, very, very good people, who do want to help. And if they want to help, they should be allowed, but everyone should benefit from it. So think about that. And on Wednesday, I'll talk more about uh, some of the things coming up for this upcoming session of the legislature. Now, here's one alibi. Think about this. There was a huge initiative for redistricting across the country. Now, as you are aware, after the census, based on where the population is in those areas, that you can redistrict to make sure that people that are living there have a voice for the House of Representatives. Now, one of the things that's come out in the state of Illinois is that the governor and the legislature, they can redistrict any way that they feel is appropriate. And in most states, it's the same thing. Now, that's a complaint from my fellow Republicans, and I agree. I think the answer is different. Ideas are what get people to vote for you. And I think in the state of Illinois, we need to focus on issues. Again, I don't think that people want to pay more in taxes. They want the community taxing that I've been talking about. And also, they want to make sure that when money is comes into the state, that is spent on roads, is spent on parks, things that everybody is using. Okay, so for the last segment, I want to talk about what my podcast was about. And what it was about was US federal policy on public safety and crime. Now, all of these are related. So when you watch the mainstream media, wow, you get a lot of information that you wonder where they're getting it from. You can't blame it on the people reporting it. It's the people in the background, their producers, the writers, people like that. So I've come to the conclusion that that's what they think. And if the reporter doesn't report it that way, and you hear about it occasionally, they have to go somewhere else to like a different network, whatever it is. The other thing, keeping with the spirit of what I just said, in the United States of America, when somebody gets elected president, when you have Congress people who are elected and the judicial that's appointed, especially with the president, that means that when they are saying something like enforcing the law and the Constitution backs that up, no matter who it is US federal government policy. It's what I keep hearing the mainstream media say, well, it's Trump's policy. No, Trump is the president of the United States, which being in that chair means that he is charged with enforcing the laws of the United States. And whether you like it or not, that's what voting's for. If you don't like it, then when there's another general election for president, do your grassroots movement use facts and data to say why someone else in the other party should be president? But with crime and public safety, the US government, has pivoted to some things. And the biggest one is enforcement. Enforcement. Enforcing the law of the already established laws. So I'm curious. I'm trying to find the word. I'm I'm a little shocked at times that people are against enforcing the law, almost like they think, well, I don't like that law, so it shouldn't be a law. Okay, well, if you feel that way, you can demonstrate. And then when it's time to vote again, vote for that reason. That's how you make changes. Has crime gone down since January? Yes. The numbers back that up. Do people feel safer? Half the country does. The other half are outraged that we want the crime to go down this way. So there is a lot of confusion to the motives that leave you a little bit scratching your head about it. But that's what my podcast is about. There's more facts and details in there. Please take the time to look at that. And like I told you, I'm excited. There is a lot to talk about. Um, I think that facts and data matter, and discussion about it is perfectly fine. Our republic has been here 250 years, and the notion that people are going to agree on everything, that's not realistic, and that's just not how it is. And a good, healthy discussion is healthy for the country. Let's not demonize it or say that the other side is 110% wrong and you want to get rid of them. That's the only thing, in my opinion, that should change. People can say whatever they want. I would like it if they would base it on facts and details, but there is freedom of speech. I want to give you the best product to make a decision that is available, especially for the Metro East. Like I said, we have a general election for governor coming up this November. The primaries are already in March. And quite honestly, in this part of the state, I know who's running for the Republican side of governor, one of them. I do not hear them having any advertisements in this part of Illinois. It's kind of like they forgot about us. We are an important tax-paying part of the state. And I can tell you, most of us do not want more taxes, and we want the community taxing. So if I were running for governor, I would be talking about taxing nonstop, because that's the one common thing for Illinoisans that we want to talk about, because we are overtaxed in Illinois. Okay, so I'll be back Wednesday at 10 a.m. and we can talk about some other things. Like I told you, I want to be the light for the Metro East in Illinois. Have a great day.